By the time we cross the threshold into our 70s, something remarkable happens. Life no longer feels like a sprint toward milestones or achievements, but rather an invitation to reflect, refine, and reprioritize. And in doing so, many of the things we once chased, clung to, or considered indispensable begin to lose their meaning. What we believe made sense in our 40s or 50s may now seem hollow. The pressures, expectations, and social constructs that govern much of our earlier years no longer align with the person we are becoming. And that's not a loss, it's an evolution. In this article, we will explore 9 specific aspects of life that often stop making sense after the age of 70. This isn't about bitterness or regret, it's about freedom. It's about reclaiming your time, energy, and attention to live more fully, authentically, and joyfully. Whether you're 70 approaching it or well beyond this, is a call to examine what still serves you and what deserves to be left behind. 1. Worrying about what others think. In earlier decades, many of us spent an enormous amount of energy managing impressions, trying to please people and fitting into societal molds. We worried about what others thought of our career choices, how we dressed, how we looked, and even how we parented or aged. But as we grow older, it becomes increasingly clear. Opinions are fleeting, and none of them define who we are. By 70, we have earned the right to live unapologetically. The need for validation fades, and in its place emerges a fierce clarity about what truly matters. The judgment of others, often shaped by their own fears, projections, and insecurities, becomes irrelevant. Their approval can no longer override our lived experience. Letting go of this burden allows us to make decisions based on inner alignment rather than external approval. This shift isn't always easy, especially for those raised in environments that prioritized conformity, but it is liberating. It opens the door to choices that prioritize peace, authenticity, and joy. 2. Holding on to material possessions. We live in a consumer-driven world where success is often measured by how much we own. For decades, we accumulate clothes, tools, furniture, keepsakes, believing they hold meaning or security. But by the time we're in our 70s, many begin to see these items for what they truly are: objects. Material goods lose their luster when weighed against memories, relationships, and well-being. A once cherished item gathering dust in a corner no longer brings joy, it becomes a burden. This is the age to simplify. Not for minimalism's sake, but to create space for peace of mind, for clarity, for ease. Letting go of things we no longer use or love isn't just about tidying up. It's an emotional release. It's a statement that says, I choose lightness. Start small. A box of unused clothes, a drawer of old gadgets. Each item released becomes a step toward emotional freedom, making your living space a reflection of who you are today, not who you were 30 years ago. 3. Attending obligatory social events. There's an unspoken rule in society that says we must show up at weddings, reunions, birthdays, dinners, whether or not we want to. And while connection is essential, obligatory presence is not. By 70, time becomes the most precious commodity. Spending it on gatherings that feel draining rather than energizing no longer makes sense. You don't owe anyone your presence at events that bring more stress than joy. Learning to say no graciously is one of the greatest freedoms that aging brings. Social obligations that once felt non-negotiable are now optional. And when you decline with honesty and kindness, you're not closing doors. You're preserving energy for what truly matters. Whether it's a quiet evening with a good book, a walk in nature, or deep conversation with a true friend, Prioritizing intentional presence over polite appearances is an act of self-respect. 4. Chasing superficial standards of beauty. For many, aging has been seen as something to resist. Wrinkles, gray hair, sagging skin. These natural signs of time are painted by media as flaws to be fixed. But after 70, the truth becomes undeniable. Real beauty isn't cosmetic, it's character. The decades you've lived are etched into your skin, not as damage, but as evidence of resilience. Laugh lines show a life filled with joy. Silver strands signal wisdom. Scars tell stories of survival. Rejecting the illusion of eternal youth isn't giving up. It's reclaiming authenticity. When you stop chasing anti-aging fads and embrace the grace of growing older, you begin to radiate a confidence that no cream or injection could provide. Celebrate your aging face. Adorn it with love, not shame. Because the most beautiful people are not those who defy time, but those who wear it with dignity. So 5. Maintaining one-sided relationships. Relationships are the backbone of a meaningful life. But not all relationships are equal, and not all deserve to be maintained indefinitely. Over time, some connections become draining, defined by obligation imbalance, or even emotional harm. At 70 and beyond, there's no space left for relationships that diminish you. The friendships and family bonds that once held value must now be evaluated for health, reciprocity, and respect. Ask yourself, do they nourish you or deplete you? Do you feel heard, seen, and appreciated? Or do you leave interactions feeling smaller? Letting go of toxic or one-sided relationships may be painful, especially if they're long-standing, but it's also an act of radical self-preservation. In their place, you make room for connections that honor who you are today, not who others expect you to be. 6. Comparing yourself to others. Comparison is a trap that follows many people throughout life. From career milestones to wealth, family dynamics to physical appearance, we've been conditioned to evaluate our lives through the lens of others. But at 70, that illusion begins to fade. When you reach this age, you understand how deceptive appearances can be. The neighbor with a perfect garden might be suffering quietly. The friend who travels the world might feel deeply lonely. Behind every curated image or social success lies a story you'll never fully know. What becomes clear is that no two lives are comparable. Everyone walks a unique path shaped by choices, circumstances, and chance. What makes life meaningful isn't how it stacks up against someone else's, but whether it aligns with your own values, desires, and truth. Letting go of comparison means you no longer judge yourself by someone else's timeline or highlight reel. You begin to define happiness on your terms, rooted in gratitude, inner peace, and alignment. There is nothing to prove, no one to impress, only your own fulfillment to nurture. 7. Following outdated goals. The goals that once drove us climbing the ladder, buying a bigger house, gaining status, often fade in relevance as the years pass. What once felt urgent and essential may now feel burdensome or disconnected from who we are. Many people continue chasing goals they no longer believe in, simply because they once committed to them. But by 70, you've earned the right to pause and ask, does this still matter to me? Perhaps you spent decades building a career, but now find greater joy in art, family, or quietude. Maybe your definition of success has shifted from external achievement to internal harmony. Redefining your goals is not a failure. It's a profound act of growth. It's the moment when ambition meets wisdom. It allows you to turn your energy toward what truly lights you up now, rather than who you thought you had to be years ago. Let go of outdated aspirations. Make room for new soul-aligned intentions, even if they're quieter, simpler, or slower. Because fulfillment is not found in chasing what's impressive, but in choosing what feels right. 8. Seeking constant productivity. The culture of hustle doesn't end at retirement. Even after formal work is over, many seniors feel the urge to stay constantly busy to justify their days with productivity. But after 70, this mindset often begins to unravel. What once felt like discipline can now feel like pressure. Productivity for its own sake becomes hollow. The obsession with doing gives way to the simple joy of being. There's nothing wrong with meaningful activity, gardening, volunteering, creating. But when every moment must be accounted for, it robs you of the sacred space where rest, reflection, and presence live. At this age, your value is not in how many things you accomplish, but in the richness of your awareness. A slow morning with tea and a book might offer more nourishment than a checklist of tasks. By releasing the compulsion to stay busy, you reclaim your time. You honor your energy. You allow life to unfold with more grace than urgency. The most important things, healing, laughter, love, happen in moments of stillness. Make space for them. 9. Feeling guilty for choosing yourself throughout life. Many people, especially those in caregiving roles, have internalized the belief that putting themselves first is selfish. But after a lifetime of giving, deferring, and sacrificing, the idea that your needs matter equally, if not more, begins to make sense. After 70, the time ahead is finite. Every day is precious, and guilt has no place in your decisions anymore. Choosing yourself, your peace, your joy, your preferences is not a betrayal of others. It's a declaration of self-respect. This might look like declining a phone call when you're tired, spending time alone without explanation, or spending money on an experience rather than saving it for someone else. When you stop feeling guilty for choosing what's best for your spirit, you live more honestly. You become more whole. And ironically, you offer more to others, not less, because your giving is no longer depleted. Give yourself permission to say yes to your joy, even if it doesn't align with someone else's expectations. You've earned it, and you don't need to explain it. 7. Trying to please everyone. By the time you've reached your 70s, you've likely spent decades navigating the complex social web of relationships, family, friendships, work, community. And somewhere along the way, many people develop an ingrained habit of trying to keep everyone around them happy. We say yes when we want to say no. We avoid conflict at the expense of our own peace. We bend ourselves to fit the expectations of others, often ignoring our own internal compass. But here's the truth that becomes clearer with age: trying to please everyone is a battle you can never win. People's opinions are ever-changing. Their desires, values, and moods are unpredictable. And no matter how much you try, you will never be everything to everyone. At this stage of life, the need for external validation often begins to fade. And that's a gift. There's profound liberation in realizing that you no longer need to chase approval to feel worthy. You've lived, you've learned, and now more than ever, you deserve to make choices that reflect your own priorities, not someone else's checklist. Imagine how much lighter life becomes when you release yourself from the burden of people-pleasing. You reclaim your time, your energy, and your authenticity. You show up in relationships as your full, honest self, not a diluted version created to avoid judgment. And those who truly care about you will honor that version of you. Now is the time to stop apologizing for who you are. Set boundaries where they're needed. Speak your truth, even if your voice shakes. You've earned the right to live boldly and unapologetically. 8. Seeking constant productivity. In our younger years, productivity is often celebrated as a sign of purpose and success. Our calendars are full, our tasks are endless, and our days are defined by how much we can accomplish. But after 70, this obsession with being busy starts to lose its meaning. Why? Because being busy is not the same as being fulfilled. Constant productivity may have once been tied to your job, your family obligations, or societal expectations. But as those roles shift, clinging to the idea that you must stay active every second to prove your worth becomes exhausting and unnecessary. Instead, many seniors come to realize that peace, rest, and reflection are equally important. Sitting on the porch watching birds, taking an afternoon nap, or spending an hour savoring a book, these are not unproductive moments. They are nourishing. They are essential to mental clarity and emotional well-being. After a lifetime of doing this, chapter of life invites us into a new rhythm, one where being is just as valuable as doing. You don't need to justify your worth through a packed schedule. You're not a to-do list. You are a human being, and you're allowed to rest, to breathe, and to savor the stillness. There's dignity in slowing down. There's wisdom in choosing quality over quantity, not just in things, but in how we spend our time. Don't let the cultural obsession with productivity rob you of the serenity you've earned. 9. Living by someone else's timeline. Perhaps one of the most liberating realizations after 70 is this: the timeline you've been told to follow was never meant to be one size fits all. Think about the rules we're handed throughout life: when to marry, when to retire, when to travel, when to settle down, when to let go of dreams. These invisible timelines push us to conform, to compare, and to feel inadequate when life doesn't unfold as neatly as we were told it should. But after 70, the illusion begins to fade. You understand that life is not a straight road. It's a winding journey full of detours, delays, surprises, and restarts. There is no such thing as being too late for joy, growth, love, or transformation. You can start a new hobby at 73. You can travel the world at 78. You can fall in love at 82. You can reinvent your identity, redefine your purpose, and restart your story at any age. The timeline is yours to create. Living on your own timeline means listening inward, not outward. It means releasing comparison and trusting the path that feels right for you. Now, not the one you thought you were supposed to follow decades ago. It means recognizing that each season of life offers unique beauty, and it's never too late to explore what's possible. Conclusion: reclaiming the freedom that comes with age. Reaching your 70s is not the end of the road, it's the beginning of a different kind of journey. One that's not driven by the hustle of youth or the pressure to meet as society's milestones. It's driven by clarity, wisdom, and the desire to live with intention. After 70, many things stop making sense: chasing perfection, hoarding material things, pleasing everyone, or living according to outdated timelines. And that's not something to mourn, it's something to celebrate. Because with every rule you release, you make space for something better: authenticity, joy, simplicity, purpose, and peace. This is the time to let go of what no longer serves you and to embrace a life designed around what truly matters. So take a deep breath and ask yourself, what am I still carrying that I don't need anymore? What expectations, habits, or beliefs can I release to make room for a richer, more meaningful life? You've earned the freedom to live boldly, to rest deeply, and to redefine what it means to thrive in your later years. Embrace it fully. If you found this article insightful, I invite you to support more empowering content by liking and subscribing to my YouTube channel, Longevity Secret. Your support helps us continue sharing knowledge that inspires healthier, happier aging.